Hey, everybody. It is the Schick Show Wednesday edition with our friend Steve Hurd. It's Steve Hurd Wednesday on Wednesday. Yeah, if it comes through, I'm meeting with him on May 6th. And if it comes through, it's going to be really cool. And it's double. It's something work related and it's podcast related. It'll be a new partnership for both.
Really?
So it's a company out of Mishawaka. So they're Indiana based, and they've got some really cool products. So it's furniture based. So
Okay,
it's based
all right.
on furniture. But I'm waiting to see. I'm waiting to see what happens. If it doesn't work out, I I have two different companies I was interested in. This one is one that I'm interested in working with because they're new to us,
Yeah.
and I want to be able to sample their product for one,
Right.
which is important to me. Like we've got a foam core thing here, and I use this quite often. I sit on
Is
this
this
a
from them?
lot. This is from the company called Foam Core, yeah.
Okay.
And I use this a lot, and I also take it to schools
Yeah.
and demonstrate it there. But I've been to their factory. It's a really cool company. They are very progressive, and it's owned by an individual and his wife that started it from saving money from a tax return.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
So it's all foam.
yeah.
The whole
it's all
thing?
foam. The base of it is plywood
Right.
for the casters to sit on.
But this is just one big giant
That's
piece of
one
foam.
big piece of foam, man. It's
So it's lightweight.
yeah.
Oh, it is. You're standing on it
I'm 265 pounds right now,
and standing on this big piece of foam.
bouncing.
Bouncing on it. You are. Now, that would have made for really good radio podcast.
I did not fall. I did not fall. So this
No, you
thing
didn't.
is-
I might
check it out.
I might
man.
need one of those in my
I'm
office.
telling you. I love those little guys.
Which how many people do you sell to that aren't schools?
It's rare.
So I'm rare. I've
I've sold to municipalities.
Yeah.
So
Well, you said you sold to Blackford,
yeah, to the
courthouse somewhere.
yep,
One of those offices.
courthouse, to the Hartford City Police Department, to the mayor's office.
Well, I got to tell you, I love it.
Yeah, good.
Oh,
Man,
so
it's great to hear.
so nice. It is so much
Isn't
nicer.
it interesting how just having that workspace available changes it, and it's all the same level.
I mean, you've seen what I was working
Yeah,
with.
yeah, dude.
That
mean,
was tough.
Mine was cobbled together, but it was still coherent.
Yeah,
You know, And
Yeah.
I've created so much more workspace here
you have.
that it's kind of given me a couple ideas of what else I might want to do.
So does this double as your office?
This is my home office.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's my office, my podcast room, and my man cave all in one.
Yeah, it works.
So there are times I'll
Works.
just be sitting up here hanging out, talking to the girls, or
Yeah.
my sister
Speaking
was.
of, I'm waiting on you to have them on your show.
Yeah,
They need to. Addison and Jocelyn need to get it together. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know they listen.
they do listen. They are.
They need to get it together. They need to come up here and be on this podcast.
Well, they were on for the Christmas edition.
Yeah. Yes, they
But
were.
it was just kind of a. It was
That
one
was
of
a
those
jokey.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were just having fun, and
Yep.
they're on the intro, so they're on every episode.
Yeah, sure.
And Jennifer's on the
but
intro.
inquiring minds want to know.
What do you want to know?
I want to know what they're up to.
Oh well,
I mean, they can't just be coffee girls.
man, they are. They are.
There's more to them than
There's
that.
a lot more to them.
Exactly.
They've got some cool stuff going on. So I don't know. We'll figure it out. I'm going to see them tomorrow, Saturday.
Yeah.
Running in a 5K over at Muncie. It's the Bob Ross Run for the Trees at Minnetrista.
I heard you talking about that on another
And
episode.
so I'm excited. I've started running
So
again.
that's why you started running again,
Yeah.
trying to get in shape. Is it just a 5K?
Yeah, just a 5K. Just a 5K.
Just a
When- it is such a mental game, and you were in the military, and
yeah, 3 miles every day.
it is such a mental game that you have to play in that run. And today I went out and I didn't put a timer on anything else. Now I I put my run timer on, just to track my
Yeah.
my run. But I tried something else today. It was a cadence, so not a cadence counter, but like a pacer.
Yeah.
So it would tell me where I was at pace wise,
Yeah.
for each of the 5Ks, and that was interesting. That was actually really motivational.
Yeah.
I needed, like, that's what I've needed. So my long run lately hasn't been like it was last year. I'm struggling to get past that 15-minute mark
Yeah.
for just a straight run.
Yeah.
And I'm air quoting run. This is
A shuffle.
a very it's probably a sped up walk that I'm doing here.
So you're shuffling.
For clarity, I ran a 36-minute 5K today. My goal is to get to 30.
36-minute.
It's right
That's actually not that bad.
It's right at 11:15 a mile. I
Marine
think,
Corps
is what it
minimum is 28 minutes.
Okay.
So you're only
Really?
8 minutes past that.
Oh
Yeah.
wow. Okay.
Yeah. So if you ran a 28-minute 3 mile, you would be at the minimum requirements
Okay.
for the Marine Corps. So
I-
unless they've changed
I
it in the
apologize.
last-
I'm closer to a
25
12-minute
years.
mile right now. Is where I'm at. About a 12
Yeah,
minutes.
that's
Just
not
a
that
little
bad.
under 12 minutes. It's like
you
11:50.
just need to be around 9. Get it to 9.
Yeah, if I
That's
could
a
get under
common- That's a
10.
good goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I get under 10, I ran a 10:50 last week in just a mile. So I just walked out of the house and ran. I ran a 10:50.
So back when I was in the 8th grade, I was in the band,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it might have even been 7th grade, but we had this teacher named Mr. Fox. He was the band director, but he was also the track coach.
Okay.
And this guy talked 13-year-old Steve into trying out for the track team.
Nice.
And I've never been a runner at all,
Me
ever.
either. Me either.
And
Yeah.
I get there for my first day, and he's like, all right, run around the track 1 lap for a warm-up.
For a warm up.
For a warm-up. And I was like, wait, all right,
What just
sure.
happened?
I can run around the bases and be fine. I should be able to run around this small, tiny track. About turn 2, Steve is huffing and puffing.
Right. Oh,
Can't hardly stand, and he has to take a break. So now, Steve's old neighbor, who was a great guy, David Osborne, he comes over and he's like, "Hey, you got to learn how to control your breathing."
yeah, 100%.
And I was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, it's in and it's out. What more do I need?" And he was like, "Inhale for 2 steps, exhale for 3. Inhale for 2 steps, exhale for 3."
Yeah.
And he said, and then as long as you can do that, you're going to be able to run a lot farther. Well, by the end of track, man, I was able to run a lot longer. Definitely not a 1600,
Right.
but I could at least do 1.5 to 2 laps
Right.
without getting super tired. And it was all breathing.
I focus so much on my breathing.
So much.
The problem is I forget that I'm breathing because I'm so focused on breathing. And I'm like,
See, I was the exact opposite. Yeah, see, that's exactly how mine was.
and then at some point you're like, I can't breathe. I forgot to breathe. I got to take a bigger breath.
See, mine would always end up being, the,
Yeah,
and then it would be,
that's it. Right there. Holy God!
as long as
need
I
more.
could,
I
as
need
long as I could
oxygen.
stretch it out for those steps, then I was fine. I might inhale for 4 steps and exhale for 4 steps, and then at some point I'm inhaling for 3 and exhaling for 3, and then by the end I'm probably inhaling for 1 and exhaling for 1. Today it'd probably be 3 or 4 exhales and inhales for every half a step, but that's that's the way. If it weren't for breathing, like I've seen a lot of guys in the Marine Corps that you were like, that guy's he's not gonna have any issues, and I'm outrunning him.
Mhm.
And there was a boxer in my platoon in boot camp, a professional boxer. Dude was jacked, and he was not
Really?
good. Yeah,
That's really surprising
Not
because they talk
good.
about how much endurance you have to have as a
Yeah.
as a boxer.
he could definitely hold his own for 12, 15 rounds.
Yeah.
But when it come to running 3-point miles,
It's a struggle,
He couldn't
man.
handle it. And then we had the opposite. We had a guy that was cross country that was finishing it in like 10 minutes.
Right. Oh,
I was like,
I don't hate that guy.
What was his name?
I don't hate that guy.
Knutson.
Knutson.
KNU.
I don't. Just for clarity, I don't hate that guy. Just a little jealous.
Very jealous, right? He was a beanpole too. He was a beanpole. College athlete, had a full ride scholarship, but decided he wanted to join the Marine Corps instead.
It's so interesting to me how, singular events change our lives so much.
Oh yeah.
Ryan Reed and I were talking about that on a podcast, how someone at his workplace like was just being a jerk, and it changed the whole trajectory of what he was going to do with his life, just because of that one guy being a jerk.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, nope, I'm not doing this.
Not putting up with it.
I'm not doing this. I'm going to school. I'm going to do something different.
Yeah.
And because of that one event, changed the like course of where he went next. Goes to school, ends up in California, meets the girl of his dreams, falls in love with her, follows her back to Pennsylvania. They get married, and it's just so interesting.
If my mom and I had the same relationship that we have today, I probably never would have joined the Marine Corps.
Sure. Yeah.
So, and if I don't join the Marine Corps, I'm not the guy that I am today, and I'm a completely different person.
Yeah. That's kind of what Mike and I were talking about in our conversation, was how I realized at one point we've got something that could go a long ways, and I just couldn't see me living my dream of being a husband and a father, and that working together, and it didn't make sense to me. And so it's one of those things, like I've talked about before, where I was afraid of the outcome. I was afraid of what was going to happen. I didn't have control over that, and I certainly wouldn't have had control over where we went. That would have been an interesting ride for sure. And now, on the same token, I'm not going to take full blame for our band breaking up. That's not it at all. There was a lot more going on there that led to that, but it certainly was a big piece of it, where I just knew it wasn't the right time for me and my family, that's for sure. Had I been 22, not married, no kids, now that's a whole different story.
Exactly.
We would have went for one heck of a ride at that
22. That's when I got married.
I got married at 23, and I'm thankful for it, because it you talk about a life-changing event, clearly, having children and having a wife and having responsibilities.
Children came later for me. That wasn't until 25.
Well,
but
we were pregnant when we got married, and we had Addie. She was first thing I checked, man, to make sure she was healthy, all her fingers and toes, and that she was good. And everybody always say, "Ooh, what do you want? A boy or a girl?" I just want a healthy baby.
Yeah.
And it was never about that for me. But
I wanted a girl, and then I got Peyton.
Oh, you got the same thing. Peyton.
That's what I would tell him too.
Then you wanted the boy, and you got Alexa. Hey.
Well, once I had Peyton, I was like, oh, it's got to be a girl now. And I'm extremely blessed.
You are, man. You're very fortunate to
extremely blessed.
Have both.
Yeah.
Share that. But, so, man, we sit down to talk about the podcast, and this is how we end up every time we sit down and talk, man.
I'm telling you, Scott. So I could literally talk about anything with you.
I've got 52 episodes I want to talk about.
Well, we've talked about Scott Love.
Yep.
We've mentioned Mike Wine and his great story. Brian Blevins is another one. I love his story. That guy is amazing.
I'm ready to have him back on. He's actually starting his own podcast with a guy named John Humphreys.
Yeah. Oh, I know John. I went to school with John.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're starting a podcast. I'm not sure what it's called, but I know it's in the recovery, genre.
Yeah. So you're gonna have a lot of guests that
I hope so.
I hope so too.
I hope so. It'll be really interesting.
I love those stories, especially when it's somebody that I know from my time as a cop, such as Brian and Mike Wine. I arrested
Right.
Mike Wine one time, and it was a warrant that he had, and I was told to go do it. I was like, he's here, go get him. And I remember going and getting him, and he was the nicest guy. He was very cooperative, and he was like, man, can I just say goodbye to my son, because this one's going to be a long one. And I was like, sure, as long as you don't run from me, you can do what you need. So that's the only time I ever dealt with Mike. But there was another time that Greg Bonowit had arrested him, and Greg and I talked after the fact. And that's when Greg was like, man, this guy had everything going for him.
Yeah.
And then he started this.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah. And, you know, I look forward to what Mike does next, because there's a lot of talent. There's a great guy there. And I think right now he's just in this in between.
yeah.
He was dealing with an injury. So he had, I don't know if we even talked about his ankle injuries.
You didn't.
He had
I
a
think you might have mentioned it at the beginning.
He had a broken ankle.
Ooh.
And he's struggling with that. And so I think that slowed him down a little bit. And it's just like, he's one of those guys that
You
thinks,
made him walk up the stairs?
yeah, he volunteered too.
Oh my god.
I didn't know at the time that he had it. Like, he was on the mend. I was like, dude, you all right? You gonna make it? He goes, I broke my ankle. And I'm like, for
yeah.
real?
I'm gonna hobble up these stairs.
Jesus, dude, why didn't you say something?
You know, that guy's voice. I can
Dude.
sit and listen to his voice on that podcast.
Right?
He's got such a that deep raspy.
Yeah, it pulls
voice.
you in.
It
that's for
does.
sure.
Man, the guy could do just about anything he wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I hope he does.
I do too. So I'm gonna go back, because I started this and it was 3 episodes that I kicked out there.
Yeah.
And when I initially started it, I was writing my own episodes without guests. And I started with Who Am I? A few of my favorite things, Tommy Simison, and then consumption. Why did I do this? And from there was one more, Are You For Real? And since then, it has been all guests.
Yeah.
And I have this Bob Ross episode that I've written that is probably a 2-hour-long episode that I haven't recorded for a couple of different reasons, because I've had guests, for one.
Yeah.
But I've had this thing sitting in the pipeline for a while. But I'm a huge Bob Ross fan, and everybody knows that. But
You are.
So that's kind of where it all began, was just like, hey, I'm going to start a podcast. And I remember writing those first few, and they're like a half-hour long, I think.
Yeah, they're not very long.
Yeah. And the writing process for that was probably 10, 15 minutes to go through and write them. And then it was just notes. It was like bullet points that I would talk through. After that, having Tommy on, Tommy just kind of set the tone for, well, you came in.
Tommy
and we
with his
talked.
pet peeves. Well, you and I talked for 2.5 hours
Yeah,
and never
never
the
recorded.
episode that never
Never
aired.
aired. This is almost like that episode that never aired.
This
one
might be that
this
episode.
may be that episode that never airs. Keep talking, Steve. See what happens next, buddy. See if I can waste your whole afternoon.
This is not a waste, man. I just enjoy talking to you. So
So Tommy comes on, and we talk pet peeves, and I wasn't sure what we were going to talk about, and it was one of those things where we were texting back and forth trying to figure out,
yeah,
are we going to talk something serious? We're just going to have some fun. He was like, man, let's just have fun. And
you did.
yeah, it's so interesting to me. I've had a few other people come in. Lisa Felver came in and talking about losing her husband, and she had notes, like she had all this stuff written
out.
out.
That was a 2-part episode.
Never even got out the notes the first time. And at the end of it, she's like, I had all these notes. And I'm like, well, we're going to
So you want to know what's funny about it? After I listened to that episode, I just told you that I went to the doctor. That's the first time I've been to the doctor since 1998, to a family doctor, to just talk about health.
Wow.
And I'm going to be honest with you here. Lisa Felver had a lot to do with that, because the idea of me passing away and leaving all of my unfinished projects at my house for my wife or my son or my daughter to finish is frightening to me, because I have quite a few. And So I thought, you know what? I need to be around for at least another 30 years to get these projects finished. So, and it took me that long. That episode aired what, 3 months ago?
It was longer than that because it was pretty early. It was last fall that.
Was it that long
Let
ago?
me see. I'll just tell you. I'm looking at it right now.
I guess it would have been before
It would have
January,
been.
before the holidays.
Um, you move forward, and that was September.
Yeah.
So it's. I
So
mean,
I've
it's
been
been 6 months, six,
I've
7
been
months.
contemplating going to the doctor since that day,
Wow.
just because of her podcast.
It's really interesting because I think a combination of her podcast and Dalton Willman's are the
Yeah.
reason I started running. And I remember Jennifer asking me at one point, why running? I said, I don't know. I said, cycling is easy for me. Not easy,
Yeah.
but it's comfortable.
Yep.
And after talking to Ted Cluck, I started understanding a little bit more about why running was something I started doing, and it was about the um, the punishment almost. That's not the words he used, but the just that self-induced pain,
Yeah.
of I'm putting myself through this now so I don't go through it later.
There you go.
And, we talked a lot about football in that episode and how you put so much work into the game through the week and it's just you're punishing yourself. It's
Right.
um you're punishing your body so that you're prepared for that battle that's coming on Friday night.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what this has become. And like we were talking earlier, I I started running in that same vein as like, all right, I just need to do something to get in shape, maybe
Yeah.
drop some weight. But then I saw things changing that I didn't realize were possible to change.
Yeah.
And it was my mental state. And I know my mental state's possible to change. I don't want that to come off wrong. That sounds really dumb. But
No.
like,
So when I was running, that's when I got, you get like anything that's going on in your life that's bad. That's when you hash it out, is when you're out there
I
all
can't
by yourself. It's just you.
I can't wait to get that good at running to where I can think about
Where-
something other
where
than
you're
where's
not
my
thinking
next
about-
breath is coming from. How am I going to
And
get my leg to
your
move
knees and
forward
your
again?
ankles hurting.
I can do that when I'm biking, so I can get on my bike, man. I can ride,
Yeah.
30 miles and just think about and sort it.
See, guys like me wonder how you bike, because when I'm about, I don't know, maybe a mile, 2 miles into biking, I start hurting in places I don't want to hurt.
It is just like anything else. You get used to your body will adjust
Sure,
to that seat.
but it takes a while. I
It does take a
I
while.
used to have like a $2,500 mountain bike,
Yeah.
a Gary Fisher Kai Tai.
Oh yeah. Gary Fisher's
I
nice
used to
bike,
go
man.
mountain biking up in West Virginia, Virginia, Maryland. I went everywhere. When I was younger, I loved to bike,
Yeah.
and it didn't bother me. But yeah, I
Well-
tried biking later on in life, and even the the bike, the stationary. Man, I hurt. It hurts. It hurts bad, and I just can't do it.
Well, I mean, you got to start out slow. Just like I wasn't running 5K. I have yet to run an entire 5K
Without stopping, or
without at least stopping once. When I ran the Hot Cider Hustle last year, I stopped twice and I took 3 steps in that race that were walking steps. And when I stopped with about 300 yards to go or 200 yards to go, I remember looking up and seeing Jocelyn in front of me and I stopped. I'd kicked early trying to catch her
yeah,
and I just had nothing. I couldn't
Yeah.
even feel my legs. And my brain just, as I stopped, I remember thinking in my head, what the hell are you doing? Don't stop now.
yeah.
And
Once
I
you stop, it can't get going
Made
again.
myself take off and run again.
Yeah.
And I probably would have broke 34 minutes had I not stopped those 2 times.
So, what's your best time?
34:04.
Really?
Yeah.
Mine, and I was probably, I was 22, definitely 22, because they made me run a PFT before I got out in April. I got out in April, and they made me run a PFT in like March.
Mm-hmm.
And the fastest I ever ran, I did it as kind of a final to you.
Yeah.
but I did it in 2022.
Dang, son.
And let me tell you, I couldn't feel my legs after the
running.
first mile. They were numb. Everything
Yeah.
from the chest down was numb. And man, I got into a good breathing pattern, and
That's running.
I stretched them legs out, and I was running.
Oh.
And I was the second one done.
Wow.
The second.
Yeah, it was the other fella.
No, Knutson, that was
No,
boot
on
camp.
Knutson.
I'm talking
Oh,
about. We're talking DC at this point, and I think we were at the Potomac Park,
okay.
running
Down by the basin, or
it was next to the water. I don't know. I could picture it in my mind. The bridge, there was a bridge like either 395 or 295 went over it, and we had to run under it, or one of the bridges for something. Because that was the start and the finish. The start, you went under the bridge. The finish, you came under the bridge to finish. So,
well, I'm hoping to get to 30 minutes by the end of this year. That's my
I
goal.
think you can do it.
So there's the Hot Cider Hustle is what I'm going to run again at the end of the year. It's in October. It's the end of October, and that'll be my last run for 24. And I'm hoping to hit that 30-minute mark. There was a part of me last year that felt really good. I was to the point where I was after that in November. It was still nice. We still had some nice days in November, and I was actually able to run an entire 5K. In fact, I ran almost 5 miles at one point. So I just continued that, and I thought, man, maybe I could do a 10K at some point. And then I started really thinking about life and how much I enjoy it, and I didn't want to die on some trail.